Shemai friendly and welcome back to my channel. My name is Caitlin Anwin for anyone who's new here, and let's get back into building in Planet Zoo. And I'm continuing in the Wetlands Conservation Park again today with a walkthrough habitat for red ruffed lemurs and black and white ruffed lemurs. They are enriched by being in the same habitat, and they also allow guests into the habitat, so I thought it would be really fun to do a woodland walkthrough habitat. And I decided on the two different ruffed lemurs because I wanted to go for animals that have an endangered conservation status, and the black and white and the red ruffed lemurs are critically endangered. So that fits in more with the conservation pack theme that I wanted to go with. It fits in with all of the animals that we've already added into the zoo, and they're kind of cute, aren't they? So why not? And I found another inspiration image on Pinterest. I will link my Pinterest board in the description. I've made up a Pinterest board of all of the images that inspire me to create habitats, and sometimes you might get a sneak peek into what I'm thinking about for the next build because I just save them as I go along. And I found this building created by this person here. I'll write it down. It had like these leaf windows, but the whole building was shaped around these leaf windows, and I thought it would go really nicely with the conservation theme with like the plant leaf shape to it. And I've got a lot of natural wood tones going throughout the zoo as well, so I thought it would be perfect for this habitat. To create the leaf shape for the window, I actually used a leaf sign from base game, I think this was. And I just wanted the outline, and I wanted natural twig type shapes for the inside, like the spine of the leaf. Is there a spine? I don't know. You know, like the inside bit. I actually ended up using the leaf for more than just like the outline of the shape. I used it to kind of try and space out the
vein
to make it feel quite natural. Going with reusing and upcycling items too. Yeah, like the twigs could have fallen off a tree or broken off a tree, and they've been reused for these beautiful window shapes. And I started with quite neutral wood tones before I settled on a colour scheme, and I'm glad I did that because right at the end I had the idea to match the colour scheme in with the colour of the animals. So at the end, once I've built everything, I'm going to go back in with these and recolor things red, black and white to go with the red ruffed lemur and the black and white ruffed lemur. And this building took a lot of trial and error. As you can imagine, there's a lot of very odd, uneven shapes in this building. So trying to make walls for this and a roof for this took a lot of trial and error, and trying to find a wood piece that would be small enough to fill in the gaps of the walls between the leaf window and like the rest of the section of that octagon. So I played around with lots of different wood textures. I started with base game one to fill in some of the walls on the sides of the leaf. The panels had to be quite high up along the leaf, does that make sense? And I wanted a roof to curve around the top of the leaf, like in the reference image, the like inspiration image. And using these panels meant that the roof would have to be a lot higher than I expected it to be. So I scrapped my first lot of walls because it didn't quite work, and set about trying to find something that was smaller than a 1 meter. I actually found this little panel from the Australia pack. They're not like super smooth. They've got different wood tones to it, which makes it feel more like upcycled, recycled. Maybe these are scraps from something else because they're so small and they've been like kind of banded together to create this building. This is maybe the second time I've used the Australia pack in a build since I started doing these speed builds. I used the Australia Park for the season zoo, the entrance to autumn. So that's quite nice because it's the start of autumn now, so I literally haven't used the Australia Park in more than a year, or almost a year. I can't remember when I quite started the season zoo. I'm really looking forward to autumn. I'm like that type of person. I love autumn. I love Halloween. I'm also looking forward to starting like spooky builds and stuff. I had a lot of fun with that last year. Making the roof panel now so I can blend in the rest of the wall paneling in with the roof to finish off the shape. And this was really fun. Like, I love a challenge. Last sort of challenge and shape I did like this was the badger basket. That was made out of all of those twigs that I used for the window. So it was really funny how I used the same sort of objects for a really challenging shape. I wanted to have the leaf shapes reflected, so when you look through one of the windows, the window opposite that window is the same shape. That made the walls and the roof even more difficult. As you can probably imagine, this one took me a while, which was lucky that I did 2 shorts last week. But yeah, the walls, because they were flipped and I used like the sides of some things, I had to figure that out. The roof then, I had to do 2 different roof shapes to fit the 2 different leaf and wall shapes. And then it come to the center. So yeah, they look beautiful. Like the first panels, if you line all of the roofs up, they make this beautiful circular shape, but there's a hole there. So I tried to like figure out a few different ways of creating like a shape for the center. I thought I would just make it more of a 2-tier building and have a second story central building. To start with, I just made another octagon because I wanted to keep the shape of the building the same for the 2 tiers. It's a little bit more simple than having that leaf window design. This one's not going to have windows. This habitat build is completely focused on this one hard shelter, but it also doubles up as the climbing frame, and it's the main decoration for the walkthrough part as well for the guests. But I certainly did not want to make another oddly shaped sweeping roof, so instead I used the roof eaves. The pitch roof is usually 4 meters wide, so to make it smaller you can use the eaves and lower the grid size in the settings, so you can make the grid go down to 1 meter and the grid height to 0 to create even smaller little roofs. I used the inner part of the leaf as a decoration for half of the windows in a staggered pattern, so 1, leave 1, 1, leave 1. For the other half of the panels I used ivy to give a little pop of green, more natural shapes, and to give more of a nature side of the building as well. Gave the shape more of a natural feel to it because this felt more square than the others. And I was having a look at like the rest of the habitat because I'd focused on that area so much for the building that I kind of ignored everything else, and I thought this little chunk of habitat area right by like where the path starts to go towards the glamping area was flat and quite plain, so for that section of the habitat I thought I would just put another top half of the building over there too, so there's 2 now, which added more shelter and more climbing, so they have plenty in this habitat. I thought for the path, if I've already used the Australia Park, let's have a look at other Australia Park items that I've never used before. Let's have a little bit of fun. I wanted it to still feel quite recycled and reused, and these education boards, once they'd lowered into the ground, looked like a really cute little haphazard fence because all of the planks of wood were different tones and different heights, so it made it feel more reused. And the like metal structure on there made it feel like more like a fence than a education board, because I'd hidden the square where the screen was supposed to go, and it's kind of rusty and old, so that made it feel more recycled as well. And it's just perfect for just a little fence barrier. But the lemurs are happy for guests to enter the habitat, so the lemurs and the guests will interact perfectly fine. But I moved my forage box over because the lemurs couldn't access the forage box inside the leaf building. The forage box is kind of awkward to have in a habitat. It kept telling me it was obstructed, so I put some rocks down, blended all my rocks. I'm not going to repeat any of my rock tutorial things because I've got lots of shorts for those to help you out with the rock placement. But I just thought it would blend in the terrain a little bit instead of having this just like mud hill that was there. Having a few rocks and some plants around gives it a little bit more of a variation for the habitat too. So it's not just trees, wood and a hard shelter. But it's coming along now. Everything's kind of blending in and working with each other. The forage box is like a nice wooden tone, and having the two buildings dotted in two different places really helped. And this is where I come in with tying in the colour of the lemurs with the theme of the habitat. I added some tamarind trees because like the red ruffed lemurs are kind of like orangey red. So it was nice to add a little pop of colour with the trees. And for the path for the guests, I thought I would do the same. I love adding these wild flowers on the path to add a bit of colour on the path and to help the wildflowers blend in with the path, because the path texture is completely flat. I painted the long grass just underneath the path to have the long grass popping through the path, and I've only used the daisies and the poppies for the wildflowers, so it is just white and red. There's no black flowers, but like white for the black and white ones and red for the red ones. Matched it in nicely, so I've just got white and red flowers for over the path to match in with the animals. And I also searched for some flexicolour flowers as well to recolour them red and white to match in for the colour scheme. And I also decided to recolour my building to match in with my colour scheme. I could have made it slightly easier for myself in making sure that all of my different groups weren't merged in with each other, but using advanced move and advanced duplicate sometimes will merge these groups in together once you duplicate them without you purposely merging them in together. So that's what happened to my leaves. Because I duplicated two groups together, they merged into one group. Don't know why that happens. I don't think it used to happen, and now it does. I know it surprised me at one point, but the black against that natural warm wood tone from the Australia pack panels was just really nice. I was super happy about that. So I recolored the bottom panel, the outline of the leaves, the bottom roof, and I also did some paneling on the edge of the top roof, but I kept that top roof like a grey brown. I'm using my Tulips education boards, which I'll put a link to the blueprint in the description. And just like with the scimitar horned oryx, I'm recolouring the flowers to match in with the theme of the habitat. So for this bunch of tulips, they are all different shades of red. And I really love this because my favourite flowers are red tulips. Ever since I read this book, red tulips have always been my favourite flowers. It's supposed to represent eternal love. Great for an asexual, right? And of course I alternated between the red ruffed lemur and the black and white ruffed lemur and changed the speaker and the TV screen. And to add more black and white, I used black and white donation bins and recycling bins, and I alternated them. So if there was a mainly black donation bin, then there would be a white recycling bin, and alternated them around the path. And right at the end, I don't know whether it was the education boards, the flowers, the fence. Well, they could walk over the fence, so I don't think it was that. But right at the end, I found that the lemurs could no longer get over to the other side of the habitat. And I wasn't quite sure why, so I built them a little bridge. The curved shape that I did for the tire swing for the siamang habitat, I borrowed that curved shape, took away the tire swing and duplicated it so they were both facing each other, and it kind of looks like a little love heart. It's really pretty. It was an easy, quick solution to create like a little bridge for the lemurs to get over to the other side. And once the guests walk through the habitat, they will actually see the lemurs run over the little bridge just above their heads, which is just really fun. This was a really fun but challenging habitat to build, but I love challenging myself. So if you ever see something that you think, oh wow, that would be absolutely fucking impossible to build, send it my way. All of my social medias are always linked in the description, Twitter, Instagram, that type of thing. And if you want to see the image that inspired me, the real life leaf house that inspired me to build one for these lemurs, the link to my Pinterest board will be in the description as well. And now on to the Pretties. I love these lemurs. They are so cute. The black and white ones are relatively new. I've never had a black and white lemur in a habitat before. The red ones I think I've had in career mode, but I don't think I've ever specifically built a habitat for them on their own. I like that I'm adding more endangered animals into this zoo, so if they don't necessarily fit in with the conservation or woodland theme, they do in a way because they are critically endangered, so they fit in with the like conservation status. Which ones are your favourite out of the red ruffed or the black and white ruffed lemurs? I think I like the black and white ruffed lemurs because they kind of look like they have more of a mane around their face. I'm not sure how much I'll cut out of the Pretties with them glitching, but it did give me a little giggle with them floating, just doing this. The glitches in this game bring me so much joy. But yeah, I'm gonna leave it off there. As always, leave me suggestions for any animals to build habitats for, any styles of habitats, anything like that for my Wetlands Conservation Park. If you enjoyed the video, smash that like button, and if you haven't already and you would like to, it would mean a lot to me if you could subscribe and hit the bell to be notified whenever I upload a new video. I upload speed builds on Wednesdays and shorts tutorials on Saturdays. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you next time. Goodbye!